In Revelation 2, John writes a message from Jesus. To the angel of the church in Ephesus write, "These are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, and walks among the 7 golden lampstands. I know your deeds, your hard work, and your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked men, that you have tested those who claim to be apostles, but are not, and have found them false. You have persevered and have endured hardships for my name, and have not grown weary. Yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken your first love. Remember the height from which you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. If you do not repent, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place. But you have this in your favor. You hate the practices of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God." And now Ephesus was the hub of trade in 1st century Asia Minor. It was home to the Apostle Paul, his disciple Timothy, and later the Apostle John. According to church tradition, John was accompanied to Ephesus by Mary, the mother of Jesus. It's believed that she lived here for a number of years and that she died here and was buried near what was later named Mary's Church. This church was the setting of the First and Second Ecumenical Councils in 431 and 449. Ephesus was the key harbor on the shore of Asia Minor, constructed with stunning white marble and architecture that rivaled that of Rome. The Arcadian Way, or the Way of the Sea, went straight from the port of Ephesus to the grand amphitheater that we read about in Acts chapter 19, where the mob rioted because the spread of Christianity was affecting the sales of idols. In the 1st century, there were 2 main deities worshipped in Ephesus, Artemis or Diana, and Caesar, really several Caesars starting with Augustus and then Nero, Domitian, and finally Trajan. Moreover, there are indications that the cult of Mithras also had traction in the Roman legions housed in Ephesus, and each one of these gods has a part to play in John's Apocalypse. Mithraism probably began in the 1st century BC or near the beginning of the 1st century AD as an attempt to explain a grand predicament in astronomy. Greek astronomers discovered ancient writings that claimed the heavens were in Taurus throughout the vernal equinox instead of the usual Aries, indicating that something had, at some point, killed Taurus. They assumed that whoever had the power to kill Taurus also had power over the 7 stars of the heavens, those being the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They didn't realize that the Earth's wobble would take it through each of the signs of the zodiac, shifting every 2,160 years. That something had to be bigger than the heavens, and it controlled the 7 stars, which would escort deceased individuals from Earth to the heavens. For followers of this mystery religion, Mithras was acknowledged as the something controlling the cosmos. He had a miraculous birth in a shepherd's cave, he was visited by magi, and he died and was resurrected, along with various other similarities to Jesus and Christianity. At the time John was in Ephesus, Mithraism was competing with Christianity, and by the era of Constantine near the beginning of the 4th century, it was the primary religion rivaling Christianity. And so, accordingly, John identifies Jesus as him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and walks among the 7 golden lampstands. This was in straight conflict with Mithras, who was thought to hold the 7 stars, the path from earth to the heavens, in his hands. In Ephesus, there were 2 extraordinarily huge agora, or places of buying and selling. In order to purchase and sell in the market, everyone had to burn incense and proclaim that Caesar was Lord. If you needed groceries or water or garments or supplies, you couldn't get into the agora without worshipping Caesar. By the time Domitian came to power, you could be executed if you didn't pronounce him Lord and have his mark on you or your merchandise. The Nicolaitans were Christians who said that while Caesar was not God, they could still burn incense to him for the sake of convenience. If they required fire, they could go to the temple of Hestia, the goddess of hearth and home, and burn incense to her in order to obtain fire, because they knew she wasn't God. If they required food, they could go to the altar of Caesar, burn incense in his name, while knowing he was not God, and be given freshly sacrificed meat. It appears, however, that this practice was not condoned by the Ephesian church. Ephesus was the nucleus of worship of the goddesses Artemis and Cybele, accommodating the Temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In this temple, criminals could come to seek sanctuary, and as long as they didn't leave the grounds, they couldn't be prosecuted. Furthermore, it was held that Artemis would guard women who were in childbirth, with a number of accounts indicating that 250,000 women each year came to the temple for such security. In the heart of the Temple of Artemis was a great enclosed garden called the Paradise of Artemis. In the middle of this paradise were 2 intertwined linden trees called the Tree of Life. Jesus promises that to him who overcomes I will give the right to eat from the Tree of Life, which is in the paradise of God. not the paradise of Artemis. In the Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, or the Septuagint, there are two words for tree, dendron and zulon. Dendron is used almost exclusively for all living trees. However, zulon, which is used to denote deadwood, is used less often, but is the same word used for Jesus being hung on a tree. When John describes the tree of life in the paradise of God, the tree, or zulon, of life is the cross. While we know a lot about Ephesus and the Ephesian church, we don't really know what troubles they are dealing with in Revelation. They appear to have resisted the barefaced worship of other gods that was persistently going on in the city, yet it appears they were guilty of another form of idolatry, one of the heart. Jesus says to them that they have forgotten their first love. But what does that mean? It's possible that while the Ephesians had done a great job in following all the rules regarding not worshipping other gods, they had perhaps forgotten to love their own God. And how is it that we love God? By loving others.